We're good on that. All right, you guys ready? And those people are all probably ready online. All right, everybody, let's get started. Today is Wednesday, November 16th, 2022, and this is my little Bible study. And we're going to be continuing with exploration in Genesis. Last week we didn't get too far. We made it through, 2 verses? All right, we're not going to get any farther in Genesis tonight than that either. But what we are going to do is we are going to keep up on the same subject. All right. Now, let me get my Bible open here as soon as I can find it. Give me just a minute. I will find it. There it is. All right. All right. Last week, what I wanted you to get out of last week was there was an age before this one. Okay? And that's actually spoken of in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, Jeremiah chapter 4, 2 Peter chapter 3. The entire chapter lines out all 3 heaven and earth ages. All right. When you understand the original destruction that is talking about in 2 Peter isn't Noah's flood, that is actually a reference to Jeremiah chapter 4, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. But that's what it's talking about. And then it begins to line out a little better with what we understand about Earth's history. Okay. Much of Christianity looks at you and says that you're supposed to take what they say at face value. And most of that says that they want to tell you that the world is either flat or just a few thousand years old. That's just to name a few. But these are all just false doctrines, all right? And Christianity is really asking you to swallow a pill when they want you to go testify to people and say that the Bible says that the world is either flat or that it's very young. Okay. Because the Bible does not say any of those things. Now, those things are observations that men make based on a biblical understanding that misses the first heaven and earth age. Okay, without understanding that, then you begin to build a universe that centers around just the last few thousand years in history. When in reality, what the Bible's talking about, so the last few thousand years of history has just been the age of flesh, of flesh men and women. All right, now, the age before, we weren't in flesh bodies, we were in celestial bodies. And we have 2 bodies. All right, we're going to talk about that tonight. And where we're going to start is in Job chapter 38. All right, so why don't you just slip over to there if you're not there already. Job chapter 38. And then let's talk about the book of Job just a little bit before we go on. All right. From a secular standpoint, the book of Genesis and the book of Job date from the same age. All right. So from everything that we know about the book of Genesis and the book of Job, stands to reason that the 2 books were in play at the same time. Okay, so when they hear the book of Job, because Job starts out as an oral tradition from sages, all right? And in my mind, it goes something like this. These new kids coming up are messing up our oral tradition. We need to start writing this down before they mess everything up. All right, because there's a lot of detail in the book of Job. So they began writing a record of it. And now we have that written record, and we call it the book of Job, all right? Now, like I said, if you've heard the book of Job, more than likely then, at that time, you would have understood the book of Genesis at the same time. You've been 2 things that you grew up with. All right. The book of Job is a parable. That's another thing you need to remember. I forget what chapter it says it, but it says, and Job continues with his parable. All right, so Job's a parable. So you have to really be thinking about the book of Job when you hit it, all right? In chapter 38, we're going to draw on some pretty in-depth scientific knowledge to actually understand what God is telling Job. But I want you to listen to these words as we go. All right, now, apart from the first 2 chapters, it's just pretty much Job's friends chewing on him about how he messed up. That's why he's suffering so much. All right, in chapter 38, this is where God actually speaks again after the first 2 chapters. And so you got like 30-something chapters right there, just people, preachers will use that and say, it says so in the Bible, but you got to realize who said it, right, and who was he talking to. But these goofballs talking to Job are not his friends, even though they claim to be, because of the things they're saying to him. And what they're doing is they're looking at Job and they're just flat judging him. All right? Let's just keep telling him over and over, well, you need to confess what you've done. And if you read the first chapter, we're going to chapter 2 here in a minute. God just reading what God thinks of Job, all right, when we get there. But in 38, this is where God speaks. This is what he says. Now listen to this. 38:1, and when the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, this is the same whirlwind that he spoke to Ezekiel from, okay? It's used several times in the Bible, and it's very interesting every time it's used. All right. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? He's been talking to his friends. All right, he's asking Job, what are you listening to these idiots for? Because they have no knowledge in what they're saying. So why are you considering their counsel? All right. Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Here's that gird thyself again, remember? Right? That's right. Get ready for combat. It's time to fight. All right, so that's what he's telling Job. Anytime you hear that, gird thyself,
that's what that means.
That means it's time to go to war.
It's time to
okay?
pull your dress up.
Yeah. Right. Literally, grab your skirt, pull it up between you and stick it in your belt so your legs were free so you could fight with a sword and a shield. And that's what it means to gird yourself, all right? So it's an expression of war, all right? Listen to what he says. Where wast thou? Now remember, we're talking about the age of the earth. All right. Where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. All right. Now, what's the foundation of the earth? The foundation in Hebrew in this sense means that which was put down first. So what's he's asking him? What's he saying to him? He said, where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if I, the foundation, declare if thou hast understanding. Who laid the measure thereof, if thou knowest, or who has stretched the line upon it? Now think about this. What's this line? The line is the compass. It's the magnetic line that we use to navigate all over the planet. Ships use it. Airplanes use it. Compasses in general, just for land navigation, use it. Now, what does this line mean then? That means that when he formed the foundation, he put the earth together in a way that he put the earth in a way that it forms a magnetic field around the earth. And that's that line. That's why a compass points north. But the thing about this magnetic field is it's a lot more than that. This was all planned when the earth was being formed by God as he formed it. And Job, what he's telling him is, you were right there with me when I formed it.
I did this, yeah.
All right. Now listen. That magnetic field doesn't just stretch a line across the earth. It protects the earth from all the solar winds.
It's crazy when you look at it.
Right.
It goes up and then it arcs out and around. It's
right.
weird.
And it forms a teardrop behind the earth because the solar pressure from the wind stretches the magnetic field out as the earth travels through space.
Yep.
All right. Without this line, without that magnetic field, when God first formed the earth, we would just be like living in a microwave. There would be no life on Earth. As a matter of fact, it's because Mars lost its magnetic field for some reason that we believe that the conditions on Mars changed drastically over the last few billion years. And exactly because of that reason. Because now the solar wind strips the atmosphere away, and then they just sterilizes the surface.
All the
and so
radiation that hits from
that's right, and all that stuff. It
yeah.
protects us. That very line that he's talking about, that Job was there with God when he laid the foundation to the earth. Now listen to this, okay? And where are the foundations there?
Why would he be telling that to Job?
That's right. Job has no idea. We'll get over here and tell him. Job, he'll go. He'll ask him kind of, what do you think? And Job said, I opened my mouth once, and I'm not going to do it again.
Nope,
because Job has no clue.
Yeah.
But we do.
That's the point. All this is
That's the point, right?
for that stuff, the fig.
All right? That's the point. The book of Job is the oldest book, one of the oldest books in the Bible. We're talking about the foundation of the earth. Not only, most people back then would have thought that the earth had been forever. But here it actually declares in the Bible that the earth had a beginning. All right? Just like we talked about in the first lecture. First there was the beginning, then the heavens were formed, and then along the way the earth. Okay? So you just with me so far? Okay, now listen, because it gets more. Now listen to this. Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? How is the earth fastened in its place? Okay, because we study about it all the time.
Gravity.
Yeah, gravity, exactly. Isaac Newton,
Spinning of the earth.
just the mass, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Mass spinning.
So that's how the foundation of, that's how, excuse me, what did you say? How did he put it? That's how the foundations there are fastened. They're fastened with gravity. All right? And that's just neat because we use this understanding when we look around the universe and to understand a lot of things, even black holes and weird stuff like that.
Tiny.
That's right. Now, okay, now this next verse is interesting. All right, now this is where we're going to have to open up our minds a little bit. All right, where were you? Because I remember that's where it started. Where were you when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Now, the sons of God. That's the first thing you need to understand. Now, it's very interesting because who the sons of God are real easy in the book of Job. Just switch over to chapter 2 of the book of Job. All right. Now, 1 and 2, chapter 2, yeah. Now, this chapter 1, this same, you guys got it? All right. In chapter 1, this same kind of scene repeat as first appears in chapter 1, and this is the repeat, but I picked chapter 2 because of exactly the way it says it. So it makes it a little bit easier to understand. Now, the question is, why we're here is when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. I want to show you who the sons of God are, all right? Chapter 2, verse 1 of the book of Job. And again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came among them to present himself before the Lord. Why would Satan come among the sons of God? Because he is one of the sons of God. Right, Ezekiel says, in the book of Ezekiel, it says, thou wast perfect in the day that thou wast created. He's talking about Lucifer.
Oh, Lucifer.
So yeah, right. He told him he was perfect in the day that he was created. So he's a creation of God. He's one of the sons of God. In the first heaven and earth age that we're talking about, he rose to the position of cherub. Right? There's 4 now, but there was only 1 then. He was the original. All right? And his job was to protect the mercy seat, but instead of protect it, he wanted to sit on it. And that's what started the downfall. All right? Now, listen to what it says. And the Lord said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. All right, so the sons of God.
During the first age.
Okay, no, this is in our age. Listen, yes. Okay, listen to what he's talking about. There he goes. Listen to what it says in the next verse because it'll clarify it. And the Lord said unto Satan, okay, first set it up. Okay, God's asking Satan, where you been? He said, I've been on the earth to and fro. The sons of God are all gathered around him. All right, and they're talking to Satan. Now, let me ask you a question. When the sons of God all gathered together and had this conversation, listening to God and Satan talk about Job, who was on the earth, where were you? Where were you when the sons of God gathered together?
There listening to
standing there
them?
with them. You're one of the sons of God. All right? Every soul is a son of God. She's one of the sons of God. I'm one of the sons of God. You are. Lucifer is. Okay? Fallen angels, the fallen angels are sons of God. They show up again in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, which we'll get to sooner or later. We go slow sometimes, but it's more important to understand it than to go fast, all right?
It is.
All right, so the sons of God are the good, the bad, and the ugly. They're everybody.
All of us.
Yeah,
Soul.
if you've been born of the flesh,
Creation?
it's what?
It's his creation?
Yeah, it's a soul as a spiritual body. So you and your spiritual body are one of the sons of God. You and your flesh body are one of the sons of God.
And don't think that sons is a differentiated gender.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything gender, right? Because women get offended when you hear sons of God. But it doesn't.
It technically means humanity. You know,
it's a soul. It's just a soul. It's real easy. No, Satan, listen to what he says. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Never mind, we're going to stop there. Let's verse 3. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? For there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. And still he holdeth fast his integrity, and although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, ye that a man hath will he give for his life. All right. What he's telling him is that Job loves you because what you do for him. And God said no.
No.
And that's not why, Job. And that's what this is all about. Okay? Because that's what he's saying. Satan's accusing God. The only reason God that he loves you is because what you do for him. If you didn't do this for him and you give him to me, said, he'll just curse you to your face, is what he goes on to tell him. All right. Well, even then, let's go on to the next one. Verse 5. Put forth thine hand now and touch my bone and his flesh and curse thee to his face. That's what he's saying in the next verse. All right. He said, Lucifer just told him, if you take away your coverage from him, I'll curse you to your face. And of course, Job doesn't do it. But what I wanted to prove here in chapter 2, what this was really about, was to understand who the sons of God actually are. All right. It's me. It's you. It's everybody who's ever lived. All right. It's fallen angels. Even evil spirits come out of the sons of God. It's just, think about it this way. Before you're born of the flesh, you're in your celestial body as one of the sons of God. Right? What is an angel? An angel is a messenger. So if God tells you as one of the sons of God to go tell somebody something, well, then you're in your spiritual body, well, then you're a messenger.
Take
And that's
on the
what angel
title
means.
of angel. That's
Right, okay? People get real turned around the axle about what really the sons of God actually are. And it hurts a lot of people because they like to try to say that the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6 are actually the sons of Seth, which doesn't fly at all, which is just the next born after Cain and Abel. But that's not who they are. They're the same sons of God that were there, in the heavenly realm talking about a dude on the ground, named Job. And Satan's having a contest, or actually trying to accuse God if he's really doing wrong because he's protecting him, really, is what he's trying to tell him.
He's earning favor
Right.
for protection, yeah.
All right. But nonetheless, now who are the morning stars? That's the sons of God,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Right, okay, Christ, well, there's two morning stars. Christ says in chapter 22 of the book of Revelations, I'm of the root of David, the bright morning star. All right? And in the book of Isaiah, the word Lucifer means morning star. All right, from end to end, you're only going to find two mentioned like that. So one is Christ and one is Lucifer. In chapter 38, the book of Job, where we are, God is telling Job, where were you when Christ and when our enemies sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Now, Job could have stopped all this right then if he would have understood, I was with you already.
you already.
I was already there. Because remember where Jeremiah? Remember Jeremiah? All right, he told Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you in the womb. Right? Knew Job. Right? Knows you, knows me. All right? And he chose, for some reason, of his own understanding, to send us into the last days. He didn't send Job or Isaiah or John, but he sent us.
The billions that passed before us.
Yeah, and even but the ones of the last days, it's us. We're the last one. In 1948, the last of the tribes of Israel were reborn as a nation. The Jews returned to their homeland. What we often forget about Israel is a divided kingdom. There were 10 tribes that were scattered into the world.
To the south.
Right. And then the southern kingdom was the kingdom of Judah. Right. In 1948, it was the kingdom of Judah that was reborn as a nation. They'd already done their time just like everybody else. But all before, through history, other tribes came out of their captivity, in different times because they all went in at different times. The Assyrians scattered the 10 tribes over probably 300-400 years with several different incursions in these times scattering the different tribes as they went. All right. At the end of that, 10 are gone and 2 remained where they did until Christ was born. And at that time, Judah is under the supervision of Rome. All right. Well, in 48, the last one came out. That was the big thing. That's what Christ said. He said when he was talking about the parable of the fig tree. He said, when you see that happen, said the people that see that happen will be the ones here in the book of Revelations when it all ends. So, welcome to the world. All right. Back in the beginning, in that first heaven and earth age, there were certain names that were chosen, certain people, because of deeds that they had done during the upheaval. Some stood closer with God than others. Some didn't really care. Look around today, all right, and you see, look at those 7, okay, this is another way to look at it. Look at those 7 letters in the book of Revelation. Each one of those letters is an attitude. All right, it represents a group of churches scattered all over the world. You know, God's 7 groups, not people's. It's not denominational. It depends on each individual home. And even this one will get a title based on what we teach. And that's what separates and puts them in those different letters. All right. But when you look at those as being like an attitude. Each one has a certain attitude. We might go back and look at those again and thinking about that. But nonetheless, let's get back on track. All right, we're talking about the 3. I got something else we got to check out in Job. Well, there's something we're going to check out, and then you'll probably want to check something else out. Flip over to 40, though. Because 40 is fun.
This is fun.
All right, now I want you to breathe and reboot. All right, because I do know that you have certain, particularly you, since this is our group right here. We've got people who watch online, but I teach the people here. They just get to listen. All right, they can click out anytime they want. If I offend you, please go away. All right? Because I'm not that rough. I'm not that offensive usually. But I am pretty strict when it comes to doctrinal stuff with the Bible. All right? So let's just breathe a minute. All right? Now this is fun. Because we've been talking about the first heaven and earth age, you know, and how old really is the celestial body is the question that we're actually looking at. You know how old your flesh body is. How old are you? 19. Right. Your flesh body's 19 years old, but how old is your celestial body? Okay, and that's the question I really want to get at. How old is it? Which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it your flesh body and you're born into a celestial body, or have you been kicking around this universe just a little while? Well, from 38, you understand that, well, goodness, I was alive when he formed the earth.
Yeah.
Right? That's 4.5 billion years ago. Now, wrap your brain around that number. Because where Christianity lies to people is that science is there to fool them. Okay? This is baloney. This is a bad assumption due to bad Bible work. All right? And it's because they don't understand much of what they're reading that they're it. Now, I want you to hold on to that thought, though, right now, about your celestial body. How old is it? We already talked about the formation of the earth. Now, listen to this, because this is fun. All right? Verse 40, we're going to pick it up in chapter 40, verse 6. All right? And then then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind and said, again out of the whirlwind. He repeats that over and over. All right. Here we go. We're going to repeat it again. Gird up thy loins now like a man. Again, formed for war. I will demand of thee and declare thou unto me. I wanted to go a little bit farther down though when we go down to 15, all right? But I wanted you to get into that, what he was saying up top. Verse 15, behold now behemoth. Now absorb this, which I made with thee. He eateth grass as an ox. Okay? Now, as we read this, I want you to look at this. Right there. Okay? Now, listen to what it says. Okay, eateth grass like his ox. He's a herbivore. Okay, he's not a carnivore, he's not an omnivore, he's strictly a herbivore. If you get to looking at the language of this, it's getting down to his teeth is what it's talking about. Now, scientifically, when we study the first heaven and earth age, we know that animals that have a certain type of teeth are herbivores. All right, and that's exactly what this is getting at, that if you look at his teeth, you can tell that he only eats grass, or vegetation anyway. Look, verse 16, lo now, his strength, go back up there, which I made with thee, all right? He made him at the same time. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, his forces in the navel of his belly. All right, so he's telling him, He's so big, his stomach is where he derives all of his power from. And he just eats.
Just eats. Yeah.
He's an eating monster. And he only eats grass. Okay? He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his bones are wrapped tight together. He's strong, got a lot of muscularity. But this cedar here now, think about the cedars that we have here. Right, they're little.
They're redwoods.
Right, he's talking about the cedars of Lebanon. Right, redwoods are more.
Redwoods are one of,
Okay.
Yeah, they're like an ancient.
Now let's put it in the Bible. Okay, King David, what King David did, he was not allowed to build the temple because he got wound up in a murder scheme. Because he was chasing a woman and got her pregnant, and he sent the guy off to the front and he gets killed, okay? I mean, so David was up to his eyeballs in it. Now, David, don't get me wrong, I'm not bad-mouthing David. He still remained a man after God's own heart, all right? But David had some blood on his hands, and because of that, he wasn't allowed to build the temple. It was going to move on to Solomon, his son, who actually would build it. But God didn't keep David from collecting stuff for Solomon to do it. And one of the big things that David did was he sent for the cedars of Lebanon, which is what these cedars are talking about. And they were used in the original, in Solomon's temple as uprights in the temple. So that tells you how big this actually is when you look at the overall temple, the size of it, especially the ones that contain the Ark of the Covenant. Very, very tall. All right. And this animal had a tail that was like that. All right, listen to what it says about him. His bones are as strong as pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He is the chief of the ways of God. He that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. All right, he's the chief of his ways. He decides what he does. He has no concern over any other living animal.
One thing that can approach him.
And that's the one that made him, right? The one that made him is what he's saying. He said he's such a monster that I'm the only one that can even get close to him. And listen to what he keeps on goes and says. All right. Surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the fields play. When I was young, we used to talk about these animals and talk about the probability that they lived in water because they were so massive, you know, and that they needed that to help, buoyancy to help support their bulk. But it turns out scientifically, we actually understand that these animals' home were in the mountains. This is an animal that grazed on the top of trees. Or things on low on the ground, and he's got quite a neck and tail to go with it. All right. And listen to what he says. And he lay under the shade trees and in the covert of the reeds and ferns, and the shade trees covered about him with the shadows, and the willows of the brook compassed about him. Behold, he drinketh up a river and hasteth not. He thirsteth that he can draw up the Jordan into his mouth. Okay, so this booger right here, he just goes down to the river. You ever seen look at animals, you know, even a tiger or a lion, they're scared of the water hole. Yeah. They drink, they do their business, and they get out.
Spot
right.
Is a water hole. Everything has to
go
there to
and the
drink.
drier it gets, the higher the tensions are there. But he doesn't care. If there's water, he just wanders down and drinks. And said he doesn't haste, he doesn't hurry, he just chills and does it. But the amount of water, this is the Jordan River we're talking about. He drinks like he can suck up a Jordan River in his mouth. All right. Now, there'll be a lot of people try to tell you that this is a hippo, but the tail doesn't match. There's nothing about the description matches. It just
He eats in the mountains.
in the mountains. Right, the hippo, she's got a little curly tail too. He's a little pig that runs in the water. Never before, except about 150 million years ago,
Something that existed.
did you have an animal that fits this description. Okay, now. You go into that was a terrestrial dinosaur that we were talking about. Go into Job chapter 40 and just read it when you go home. The next chapter, Job chapter 40, and you'll get a really good example of Leviathan, which is just an aquatic dinosaur. Something like a plesiosaur or a mosasaur or something like that. Something that we've probably heard of. You got to remember, in Daniel, remember what he says to Daniel about a vision that he had. He said, seal it up till the time of the end. Said in the time of the end, there'll be a time when knowledge is expanded. All right? And he told him to seal up his vision until then, until knowledge was expanded. Then you'll be able to understand what you're talking about. Job's a lot the same way. Oldest book, one of the oldest books. But yet, it takes a 21st century understanding of the universe, planet mechanics, formation of the earth, establishment of the magnetic field, biology of things on the planet, right. Many, many things. And when these animals were alive, he says that's when he made Job. Right? So if he made Job when this animal walked the earth, he also made you, and he made me, he made her. Anybody that's even walked in the age of the flesh was made then. Right? In the heyday of life on earth during the Cretaceous, Jurassic, and Triassic periods.
Okay. Age to walk around.
You did. Okay, now.
Yeah.
Now, this is some things I've seen. I have seen people who say that the earth is very young and that man walked with dinosaurs, all right? Okay, and this is one of the reasons why, as there's this pretty well-known fossil. I don't know if it's authentic or not, but I have no reason to suspect that it's not, all right? But it is a dinosaur print, and then right behind, this is not the same one we were talking about just a few thousand years ago, but that one's a cool one, but it's the same thing.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, and right on top of it looks like this human footprint. It looks just like me and you, all right? But you got to remember, we're made in our flesh bodies in the image of our celestial bodies. You know, when we get to the creation of man, you will understand that very clearly because we'll dig it all out because you have to understand that. Right. A few thousand years, right. And then that's where churches pick it up, as they pick it up there with those first days and say that's the beginning, but that's not the beginning. That's the beginning of the second age, not the beginning of all of it.
This, you know, Job talking about, God talking about with Job about walking, you know, and us being born during the time of dinosaurs. They mistake that as we were in flesh body walking the dinosaurs.
So you see where the confusion comes because they read that right. They say, "Oh, he made him then."
Yeah. No,
Oh, but it's not talking about
the first age.
right. Yeah, I don't understand the first age and the concept of the sons of God.
During the first age.
Dinosaurs were during the first
Yes.
age?
Yes, that was during that age, Cretaceous.
Flesh, but we were-
But we were in our spiritual bodies, right? Right. That's why there's a footprint that covers a dinosaur track right behind it because a human in a spiritual body actually walked behind
Just
one.
because we're spiritual and celestial
Doesn't mean it's not
tangible.
physical, right? It's tangible.
Yeah,
like
man.
if you're in your spiritual body, mean you could fight.
We're so
That's
we gotta
biblical.
think we're pure energy. Why couldn't we realign those energy, that atoms to create a sustainable form,
Okay.
substance that you can
Well,
walk with?
look at it this way: Jacob, the patriarch of the tribes of Israel, the patriarch prime. It's his sons that are all the patriarchs of Israel. Well, Jacob wrestled with God. Okay, God's in the spiritual body. The only time he was in the flesh one was when he walked as Jesus.
So
But Jacob wrestled with God, and that's how come Jacob's hip was out. Right. So they had a fight. Not a fight. It was a wrestling contest. It wasn't a battle. It was a wrestling. They were just wrestling. Jacob was a big, strong man,
God's like,
and he didn't want to quit. And God whipped his butt for all day long. It went on, and finally, but he wouldn't quit. That was the thing. Is Jacob wouldn't quit. No matter how bad he got beat, he kept getting up. Every time God would put him down, he would get back up. And that's what God liked about Jacob is that he didn't quit. And matter of fact, he had to hurt him pretty bad to make him quit. He pushes his hip out and he limps the rest of his life. Right. And that's why that's why a lot of the Levitical Jews, they like to have that left hind quarter. That's where that nerve is, and that's what represents to them that where he pushed Jacob's hip out. That's why it's considered the choice cut. It was because that's the sinew that was hurt. Right. And that's why they like that bigger, because it came off his left side. It was his left hip, right? It's just there's a lot of time and stuff, a lot of traditions we don't understand. Right. We often use something called presentism when we look at historical stuff, which is kind of we're trying to say our moral standards judge things of the past by our moral standards, and it doesn't mean the same thing.
We think that way in the past, so yeah.
But then there's other things. There's other traditions even go around that too, and all that. But nonetheless, so we have a whole bunch of Earth's history then that opens that study up. Then, whenever we look with secular lens to the Earth's history, we look back and go, "Wow, there was some time in the Earth's history. There's been life on this planet a long, long time."
Stuff that actually
Right. I mean, things that have been living and breathing, not flesh men and women, but things that, other things, Neanderthals or something, they were here, 30,000, 15,000 years ago. As early as, or as late as 15,000 years ago. You have other things like that were on the planet. You have this type of life that was there. You have an age of reptiles. You have an age of the sharks.
bird.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the earth has been through constant change through its existence. And we have all been bouncing around in it in our spiritual bodies for, well, at least since the founding of the earth, according to the book of Job. And when the earth was formed, we were there, already present with God. The sons of God were already, I mean, he just made the earth for us, which is exactly what it says. All right, so you just, I know, it's a lot, I know. But I want to back that up just a little bit more before we go. Now, I want to do a little study called the word foundation. And to do it, we're probably going to have to look off my iPad. Everybody else is just going to be just a little bit out of luck. But on the website, on our website, mylittlebiblestudy.com, no spaces, no capitals, all right? Under the special studies tab, you click on it, and at the very bottom right now, it's called the word foundation. It's all laid out there for you. When you look at that page, the Hebrew side is on the left, and the Greek references are all on the right-hand column. This is divided into 2 pages. And that helps you out, but it's the word foundation. And I'm going to do it right here on my iPad so you can see.
I've seen it. You're good.
All right. Now, we've already talked about foundation, the word foundation, a little bit in Job, right? And said, Job, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Okay? That word foundation means that was put down first, right? Now, I want to show you how many times it's used. Foundation right there. All right, in the Bible, the word foundation is used 53 verses and there's 54 matches. That means that somewhere in those 53 verses it's used 2 times. That happens in the New Testament. All right, with my little computer here and on your MacBook, if you'll download this program, you can do this exact same thing right there. And you can study it and see it in extreme detail, all right? All right. But here I can limit my searches, all right? I'm using the word foundation. It's the entire Bible. It shows up 53 times. Click on OT as Old Testament, 30 verses, 31 matches. No, maybe it is in the Old Testament, all right? The word foundation right there, all right? New Testament, all right? You got 23 verses and 23 matches. Okay, let's take the Old Testament first. Let's go to Exodus. Let's just pick any, pretty much one of them at random. 32:45, that's what it's going to be most of the time. Even if it's not that word, it's one that comes back to this as the prime. And this is pretty much all time in Hebrew. It's yasad, and it means to set literally or figuratively, to found, or to sit down reflectively, much like that, to found, to put down, that which was put down. And most in the New Testament, that's pretty much what that means. All right, excuse me, in the Old Testament, in Hebrew, that's pretty much what you're going to end up with. There are some exceptions, but if you want to leg them out, have at it. It's all on the left-hand page on the website, all right? Everything's there. Or you can do it yourself with this thing. All right, let's go back to foundation, all right? That was Old Testament. Now, New Testament. I want you to look here because this has got my Strong's numbers up. All right, 2602 is one word. 2602, oh shoot, go back. New Testament, 2602, 2602, so that's one word. 2310. All right, so here in the New Testament, we have 2 different Greek words that are translated to one English word, and that's foundation. All right, not plural, but singular. All right, plural gets you a different root altogether. All right, now I want you to understand the difference. 2310 is what most of them are, and it's what, like in Luke, speaking of grass, he is like a man which built an house and digged it deep and laid the foundation on a rock. And when the flood arose, the stream beat vehemently upon the house and could not shake it, all right? Because it was founded. That's, you take your 2311, you'll get it back to 2310, all right? Almost the same word, upon a rock, all right? So foundation, it's just pretty much like the Hebrew word, right? Now, there was another word, all right, and it's 2602. Now, 2602 has absolutely nothing to do with something that is put down first. But it's katabol, all right? And it means the founding period, but it comes from 2589, which we want to go to, which is a compound word, and you can run that if you want, all right? But you'll get the same thing, to throw down or to cast down. So the word katabol doesn't mean something that is founded, something that's put down first. The word katabo means to cast
destroy,
down.
Yeah.
All right, to throw down or to cast down. So what
Like
it's saying,
concrete for a house kind of thing?
no,
No.
it's not. It has nothing to do with the house. That's the point. It has nothing to do with the foundation of
if
a
I
house.
was to throw you to the ground, that's foundation.
Listen to what it says. Listen to what it says in
You're saying
Matthew.
it's the act of like throwing down.
Okay, well, this is this. That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, and I will utter things which were kept secret from the katabo, or the casting down of the world. Okay? The foundation is our word. It's the cast down of the world. The casting down of the world occurs in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Okay? You follow me so far? Katabo has nothing to do with the foundation of a building. It has nothing to do with Christ being the foundation of the church. It has to do with the casting down of Lucifer.
The first stage.
When Lucifer was cast down, God destroyed it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, Jeremiah chapter 4, 2 Peter chapter 3. When you understand that the world did not perish in Noah's flood. Remember? We went there last week, and the point of the ark was to keep seed alive so it would not perish. So Noah's ark becomes just a flood that has occurred in the second heaven and earth age. This word foundation is used, when katabo only applies to the casting down of Lucifer in the first heaven and earth age. Let me show you the rest of the places that it's used.
So you're saying foundation has two different roots?
Right. The word
yeah.
2602, right, in Greek is different from the 2310 that we worked at. They're different numbers, a different word. All right? Now, I want you to look what we're going to do.
Years of translation, dude.
Look at
You know what I
this.
mean?
Okay. I just did a search for 2602, which is to cast down. All right. All right. And these are all the places it shows up. Matthew, where we were. Matthew 25. Listen to what it says. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, be blessed, for my father, or of my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from before, or from the casting down of the world. All right. Katabo again. Luke, the same thing, the foundation of the world. It says, this to be of this generation, that the blood of all the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the world may be required of this generation. That's us that they're talking about, all right? Foundation of, here's another one, John. I want to go to this one, though, right here in Ephesians. And then one more place. All right. I want you to listen to what it talks about. Now, this is talking about in Ephesians here. It's really talking to people that won't bow a knee to the Antichrist. It's talking about the people that really won't bow a knee. All right, that's what Ephesus is written to. The church of Ephesus. Ephesians is written to the church of Ephesus in the book of Revelation. Look at it that way. That's a good tie. Holds out very distinctly. Okay, listen to this. Listen to verse 3. I think is where we'll pick it up. Blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who hath blessed us with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Christ, according as he hath chosen us, the people who will testify, in him before the katabo, or the casting down of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. Having, listen to what it says, listen to the word he uses, having predestinated us unto the adoption of the children by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good will of his pleasure, which means predestined. Now, what does that mean? It means he determined beforehand, just like Jeremiah, all right? Just like the whole time, from the time period like we've been studying in Job, all right, that there are some in the last days that God chose from before the casting down of the world, and chose them then, predestining them to testify in the last days. Welcome to the book of Revelation, because that's what that's all about, is those people being brought forward. Now remember what it says in the New Testament. It says, during the last days when the Antichrist are here, a mother will betray her daughter to death. You got to remember, the book of Hebrews tells you that death is a title. It's a name. And it's just deceiving. It's just betraying them to the Antichrist because they believe it's Jesus.
Jesus, yeah.
And he's saying before we leave, you need to bring everybody that doesn't believe I'm God to me, and then a mother will betray her daughter. You know,
I think the thing
husband
that
and wife.
it's locked down in my head to keep me differentiating between the two
Yeah.
are the crowns.
Yeah, that's right. Between the Antichrist and the actual Messiah, right? The Antichrist only has one crown, right?
The Messiah wears all crowns.
All the crowns, right.
Oh, you're
There's,
saying
okay, I want you to listen to something that we've done. The reason I did one lecture and built a website around it, there's one thing I want everybody to know, and it's called The Two White Horses of the Book of Revelation.
Yes, it's an
And
excellent lecture.
Yeah, I want you to listen to it. It's a
is it
special
on My
studies.
Little Bibles?
It's about the
MyLittleBibleStudy.com.
Antichrist, yeah, and the deception of the end days. All right, it's called The Two White Horses of the Book of Two White Horses, I think is what it's
I
called.
think they
yeah,
actually
it's
Two
I
White
think it's the
Horses.
first lecture on the website.
I'm pretty sure.
On the special studies tab. All right, what that does is it shows you the two white horses in the Book of Revelation. One is in chapter 6, one is in chapter 19. The one in chapter 19 is the actual Messiah. All right, the one in chapter 6 is just somebody on a white horse that looks like Jesus. All right, and he has only one crown, which is what he's keying on, because his only mission is to conquer, and he does it with deception.
Deception.
He deceives everybody. Remember
That's
it says,
the crown.
okay, in
That's his
Isaiah
crown.
where we were talking about Lucifer, you go at 3 more verses down from what I was quoting from with Lucifer's name. It says that during the millennial period, people will actually walk by the pit and look in it, and the thing that goes through their mind is how did he deceive the world? How did this one idiot do it?
So to me, within that tells me that he's going to cater to everyone. He's going
Everybody,
to tell
he does,
you what
that's
you
right.
want. The real Messiah isn't who wears all crowns. He don't care.
He don't
You
care.
got one
Yeah,
choice.
he's not catering to anybody.
So he's going to
right.
you walk behind him or
Do you want to? The easiest way ever to determine if the Messiah's here, if you're still in your flesh body.
Yeah, if
Because
you're
the
still in your
seventh
flesh
trumpet
body
carries
and
the
somebody comes up
transfiguration
claiming
carrier.
that he's the Messiah, wrong.
And then it's
Wait,
not.
what?
Yeah.
If you ever think that
Yeah,
Christ
this
is
is
on
it,
earth and you can look down at your hands and they're the same hands you've always had
That you were born with?
then Jesus is not returned. Because the one thing that happens at the second advent, at the seventh trumpet, is called the transfiguration.
Okay.
And
Little shift.
Remember what Paul talked
Back to
about it.
celestial is what you're saying?
Yeah, back to your celestial
Back to our
nature.
normal
Everything,
bodies,
not
yeah.
just us. Everything is flesh.
Everything, yeah.
All animal life, everything. Yeah, all things that are flesh. And the Bible says there's fish flesh. You got
Plant
animals are
flesh,
flesh. We're flesh. There's all kinds.
Everything, yeah. Everything
All
on the
flesh.
world is pretty much gone.
A new age
Just
begins. All right, that's where the third age actually starts. For millennium, we got one day. We got that last day. That's the millennium. It's 1,000 years. But and we're in spiritual bodies for that. But so
That
if-
happens the day he arrives, or
that's
like,
the instant he arrives. It's instant. Remember, it says in the twinkling of an eye. But Peter, the New Testament hints at it. It tells you. It said, "There's some of you in the last days that will be standing there and say, you won't suffer death." And so what's going to happen to you is that in the twinkling of an eye,
You'll just be
when Christ's feet touched the Mount of Olives and split it, all flesh is changed into its spiritual nature. That's how come the Antichrist can't say anything when Christ shows up.
yeah.
It said, in Daniel, it tells him, he said, when the actual Messiah shows up, he said, he shoots
It's
him
over.
down, he doesn't even raise
Yeah.
his hand. He said, he goes, he just silence and he just shuts down and shuts up because he can't. Because what are you going to argue with? He's not pulled off a transfiguration. All right? So that is all, I'm not pushing, I am too pushing.
Yeah.
All right? If I could ever meet anybody and teach them anything about the Bible, this is what I want them
And
to know.
is that where they mess up and translate rapture from?
Yes. A lot of rapture comes from First Thessalonians chapter 4. Okay, and that's talking about, and really what it's talking about is that the people that die, they're not in the grave. Like, have one of your grandparents gone? Have you had any
I have a
grandparents die?
great-grandparent that died.
Anybody you ever know died?
like
Dead, physically died.
my great grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
I
okay.
knew him. Yeah.
none of them are, no one's dead. You were talking about tattoos. The reason why you're not supposed to get a tattoo and for remembrance of the dead, right? Yeah, that's the prohibition is in remembrance of the dead. It's because he's not dead.
No.
All right. When he died, he was resurrected in his spiritual body.
He was transmuted.
Okay, right, and then and went home where we're actually from. Okay, so we don't lay in a hole, and that's what First Thessalonians is talking about. It said, if you think that these people that have died are in a hole, then why would you call Christ your Messiah? It said God's not the God of the dead, but of the living, right? So no one who has physically died a flesh death is actually dead. No one. They're all there with him. They're on one side of the gulf or on the other in the book of Luke. All right? So nobody is dead. And we've been in play a long time. Now you know from Job how long. From the book of Job, you get a good idea how long anyway. All right? Foundation of the earth, we're talking about
Billions of years,
4.5 billion years.
Goodness.
These animals, 155 million years ago.
And like I was telling you the other day, how you are more in tune with the science fiction kind of thoughts.
That's all part
and
of
stuff like that. Yes,
Yeah.
listen to this. When it comes and you ask, how do we not remember any of this? How do you try and cram a celestial son, a being that's essentially what you are, into a flesh brain and see if how much you remember?
The whole
Think
point
about that.
Well,
You're
okay.
jammed into circuits technically.
Now there's okay, that's a good point now. But why can we not? Why are we only allowed to remember through this?
But that's got a lot to do with redemption
Okay,
too.
right,
so.
you're right. That does help a lot.
But when you think it scientifically on
Right.
a science fiction standpoint, with most science fact comes from science fiction.
This is true. Yeah,
It's easier to comprehend why we don't, why we can't. You know what I mean? Why it's
Now this book,
easier to
right?
to think that I do have this.
Yeah, I see what you're
There's
dive
so
this
much
deep,
right.
yeah.
And we miss that often, and we don't understand all this stuff. Then we start building ideas about the Bible that are this high off the ground. It's like we start saying things. All my relatives believe in their minds, believe that the world is 7,000 years old. They believe it, all right. And the reason they believe it is because they sat in church every
We're
Sunday
told and brainwashed.
all their lives from the time they were little and
It's
told that
brainwashing.
that's what the Bible says. Okay? And I remember we said in Amos chapter 8, verse 11, that the famine of the end times is not bread and water, it's for hearing this.
Hearing the
It's
word
hearing
of
these things,
God,
they're hearing
yeah.
the word of God, right?
True Bible.
So you get all these people then that sit in church for 20 years, and they never hear once that the Antichrist appears before the Messiah. They never hear anything about what happened in the book
That's
of
the
Job.
horseman of
No,
famine.
right, that's
That's
part of
what
it, right.
that is. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's right.
making the
Sit in
famine
church
for
with
knowledge.
them.
It's not anything to do with food, with sustenance.
Yeah, right.
It's
You
for
notice-
knowledge of what is.
We really don't know what hunger is. We've been blessed all of our life. We've all grown up. Even poor people are fat in our country.
Uh-huh.
All right, where poor people in other countries are dead. All right, now they may, by the same means, they may be overweight, but they could also be nutritionally deficient because of the food that we do. Now,
They
all
eat
that's a
blood,
part
yeah.
of the Book of Revelation.
Yeah.
And that's part of the imbalances. That's even in Amos that what we're talking about. We might have to cover that one because Amos, that's a good chapter right there because it talks about the balances from the horsemen.
Yeah.
And what's going on. And it's saying we can't wait for the Sabbath to be over because we got to get back to ripping the people off. And what it says, what they're doing is they're making the ephah small and the shekel great. So they're charging you more money for nothing, for
Yeah.
less and less. All right, and that's all just before it gets into that. And then it said, so now think about what that means. Okay, that doesn't mean a famine, right? Remember in the book of Revelation, 2/3 of the ships were destroyed. So
Yeah.
we still had them going. So you're not, the physical food thing is tight, but it's
Right.
not a famine.
And you
Right.
got to realize that there's other people.
That's
we,
right.
We are.
And Amos backs that up, though, is what I'm saying, that they're making the shekel, you're paying so much more.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
taking the bushel, what used to be a bushel, and now it's
So much
a
smaller.
half a bushel. But you're paying even more for it. Yeah. So we have food, but the famine, and then Amos says him right next after that, but it's not
I
for
think
bread
a
and
lot
water.
of
it's
the
for
true
hearing.
spirits of people will
Right.
come out. Then you know what I mean.
Now, and that's why this is why I do this thing, because I don't get to teach this at a church anywhere. I've tried. I mean,
This
I've
is
spent
our church. This
years.
is church.
Yeah, this is for me, right? I spent years with this book, and when you go and you take it into a church, that's the worst place in the world to take a Bible. It's sad. It's sad, but I told you, don't like it, click out.
We've went to
That's
church-
just a fact.
We went to 2 churches. You know, I didn't grow up in the church. I went to church maybe 3 times before we started this.
You ain't missed a day since we started it.
And I've went a couple of times to a couple of churches now, and man, it's halfway through I'm wanting to get up and walk out. The only reason I sat through the whole service is because of my wife.
Yeah, I just
You know what I
wanted
mean?
to be there.
And it's just because a lot of it's false, man. I can't sit there and listen to what I've clearly read and then translated back to the ancient forms that it was written in. You know what I mean? And then go, well, you're telling me something different, but that's not what's there.
Yeah, that's right.
So
now we're getting ready to. Yeah, we're getting ready. You're getting ready to get.
It's frustrating.
I promise you. I swear to you.
Very
You might not agree
frustrating,
with
dude.
anything you learn, but I promise you, you will understand every word of it. I can guarantee you. When somebody says, "Oh, this is what it says in Genesis," you'll be able to go,
don't know
"Okay," or
about that,
"No."
yeah.
I promise you, and you'll be able to make up your own mind because you'll
Yeah.
remember it. Trust me, you're not going to forget the next month.
Yeah.
I promise you. I mean, that's what gets people really hooked on the Bible. If you don't lay the foundations right, well then
You don't understand
don't
where you
understand
came
why.
from, then
It
you're
all
not going to
just
want to
sounds
continue
like-
on in the
like-
story.
Yeah.
It's like starting an anime
How did
in the
you, like,
6th freaking season, dude.
How did you read this and then just understand that?
Or starting Lord of the
I'm
Rings
not.
halfway through Return of
Okay,
the
that's
King.
a good question. That's right. Okay, that's a good. Okay, I was taught. I have a pastor that I've
Like
served.
the same what you're doing for
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
You can look him
Uh,
up. His all his stuff's online.
Yeah, all stuff's online. It's Arnold Murray. It's Shepherd's Chapel in Gravel, Arkansas. It's all online. You can get the whole book of Revelation. Just go Shepherd's Chapel, Revelation, and you'll get 18 different students who put up their work. And in order, you just start playing one. It'll take you through the whole book. You can do it on our website too. I learned to do it that way from him. I teach like him. I even say use some of his. I got some of my own stuff up that I've learned too. But what he taught me, what he taught me to do is he taught me how to study. All right? I pick up the Bible. I used to pick it up and look at it, and in my mind I could go, I know this is true, but I don't understand it, and I don't know that anybody understands it. Okay, and I thought that for years and years and years.
That's how
And-
I feel. That's how my mom feels.
Okay,
Because
right,
it's like
okay.
reading like a puzzle sometimes.
Okay,
you know?
that's right. Okay, now what I found out from him, the reason why it's that way is because we do verse study. You say you talk about the Bible, and somebody goes, "What's verse? What verse is that?"
Yeah.
Okay, and in the Bible, the shortest verse in the entire Bible is Jesus wept. Okay, but that verse, you know nothing. All you know is that his tear ducts work. Okay, seriously, I mean Jesus wept, but I don't tell you nothing.
Don't tell you anything
Yeah,
else,
he was a human and his tear ducts worked. Did he get sand in his eye? Okay,
What?
that's
Did
just
he
as
get
legit
punched
as
in the
what was
nose
going
and
on.
stub a toe?
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't know the story.
Yeah.
All right? And but we're taught, okay, what verse is that? And then we go read a verse, and then we go, yeah, Jesus loves me. Okay, and that's the truth. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic, and I'm not blaspheming. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
What I learned from where I went to church was that you study line by line, verse by verse. You go chapter by chapter through the book, and you go slow enough
Yeah.
to where you can absorb some of it. You don't try to read the whole book. You try to understand 3 verses.
Yeah.
All right, and when you got those 3 verses down, then you go on a little farther and you understand, and you have to go line by line, verse
But
by
then
verse,
do you
because
start like in Genesis? Because
well,
like
you start wherever you feel led to start.
well,
That's
because
no
like
problem.
me reading the first 2 verses of Genesis, I would have never known to go to Job, to Peter, to Jeremiah.
You're right. Okay. The
You know?
reason why is because we're taught the book of Revelation, the book of Genesis, particularly the first 8 chapters, based on cultural perception. All right, and what I mean by that is there's certain things that you know because you're from here. Okay, it's just the things you know, and the book of Genesis is actually one of those, the first 8 chapters. We know what it says in the Bible before we can read. Okay, we go to Sunday school, and we draw all these nice little pictures, and we take them showing the mama how pretty we did. Oh, great, you got a snake, and then a naked girl, and the guy in the background doing nothing. You got a guy on a boat, and got some animals running around. And that's it. That's where we stop. All right? But we think that, so when you go to read it, not in our minds, we know what it already
It just
says.
assumes.
Yeah. So you read it and you just read right over the top of it. because you already know what it says at the end. You already have the ultimate understanding because we drew it
Yeah.
from the time we were born.
Yeah.
All right, so it's really hard to break down that.
Yeah.
And that's why I like teaching this, because this is all about breaking that stuff down, getting it right, getting it ordered. Now from here, the rest of it begins to unfold now a lot easier for you. Okay? Because now you have the first heaven and earth age down. Okay, you know, there was a rebellion. You know, it was destroyed. Okay, what destroyed the dinosaur? We were talking about the casting down of the world, okay? What destroyed the dinosaur? You know? Is it a meteor impact?
Meteor.
A meteor impact. 66 million years ago, right off of in Mexico. It's called the Yucatan Peninsula.
The biggest crater that's ever
yeah,
been recorded on the planet.
Yes. There are 5 different extinction events in the world's history.
I thought nobody knew. I thought that was.
No, it's pretty solid
They
on
figured
this
it out
one
quite a
now.
few years ago,
Yes,
actually.
we're real solid on this.
Yeah.
So you got that uridium layer all the way around
it's because
the
the
world.
way the planet covered in Earth,
it's
with the dust and the way it settled all
you
over
have
the
no
whole planet.
dinosaurs above a certain layer,
Yeah.
and it's okay. There's been 5 major extinction events on the planet.
Okay.
Okay. And then we're gonna wait science. I like science anyway. The granddaddy of all of them is called the Permian extinction. It was way back in the Permian period. Where 90% of all the physical life on the planet died. I mean, it almost was wiped completely out. But that extinction event took place over, I think it was, I want to say 30,000 years. It was a huge, long, prolonged event that things gradually died off. But when it was over, it was all pretty much dead. Okay.
Okay.
You have a few other ones like that. Okay. All these extinction events take place over periods of a minimum hundreds of years to into thousands of years, except for one. All right, and that's the KT impact that destroyed the dinosaurs. In the blink of an eye, literally within 2 minutes of the impact happening, the other side of the planet knew it was dead. It was literally that fast. They knew something bad had just happened.
Sure, you can feel it.
The flash of light from the impact was so great that one of these animals, they would have looked translucent. You would have been able to look through it for a split second before you evaporated.
Yeah, the retinas didn't burn instantly. You know what I mean?
The ejector was ejected so high into the atmosphere that some of it became suborbital and went around the planet.
It's still
and
dust.
Yeah. Now, over a period of time, not all of it was orbital. Some of it just went up and it started to come back down. And over the course of the next few weeks after the impact, it just rained fire all over the planet. I mean, it was done. The Yucatan Peninsula, the wave that was generated from the impact on the water was over 700 meters tall and is moving, they think, around about 500-600 miles an hour. So who knows how many times it went around. Now, think about Jeremiah, when we were talking about the destruction of Jeremiah. All the hills moved lightly, right? When we were talking about in Jeremiah chapter 4, the
That would
destruction
make
of the
all
first
the
age.
hills move
Right, there was a
lightly.
worldwide earthquake, right? Well, that impact made that happen.
Yeah.
The whole
Oh, yeah.
earth shook. All right? And that's what's interesting. It destroyed the dinosaurs, but yet birds seem to have survived. Okay? And we just changed the classification on modern birds to avian dinosaurs.
Avian dinosaurs.
Okay? And the reason why is because before that boundary, there were 2 types of dinosaurs: terrestrial dinosaurs and avian dinosaurs. Now, the avian dinosaurs could pick out a living probably after that destruction. Just a few survived enough to get a repopulate part of the earth. And when we start breaking down the book of Genesis and the days of creation, we're going to talk a little bit more about birds, but you'll see that it's not really, with the thing that he was creating when it's talking about birds, really wasn't the birds was what he was talking about. He was talking about something else. But, and fish too. It's not fish.
Are
but it's
crocodiles considered to be like dinosaurs?
Yes. That would have been another one that probably would have
Like
that
survived.
would have been able to survive. Right, they're carrion eaters. They can scrape out a living pretty much anywhere. There were a few animals that could have survived,
in
right?
freshwater,
But
yeah.
for all intents and purposes, it was gone. I mean, just completely gone. And that's the only time during Earth's history that kind of an event happened just instantly.
Yeah, dude.
You know.
And it's crazy because it shows, the plant life. There's fossils that don't, everything doesn't
Right.
exist after this layer appears.
A lot of like the probably petrified wood and stuff like that. A lot of
In
that
that
comes
layer,
probably
yeah.
from that kind of an event.
I got a piece of petrified wood.
Worse,
now.
yeah,
I'll
I
bring
do
it next time.
too. You have other stuff like, your pastor's going to argue with this. You have shock quartz and mock diamonds and things like that.
It only exists
These
during
things
extreme-
only occur during
Yeah.
impactor events. Yeah, it can only be formed. The pressure's high enough and great enough.
Like the
only
quasar
with those
crystals
events.
that were created during the atomic bomb testing.
Right, that's-
when
yeah,
they
that's-
spent these bombs off. They created these.
It's
crazy,
called shock quartz is
crazy
what it's
little
called.
crystals
But it's
from
quartz,
the-
but it's just, you
from the
break.
explosion.
Right. It's
They
still quartz, but
crystallize
it's
it.
just soft.
I
and
never
Yeah,
heard
crap.
it's crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crap.
It's crap. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
crap.
can't make it-
because it's made by such an explosive force.
Yeah,
the
it just,
linears of the crystals
you can't
aren't
do anything
lined
with
up
it.
like they should.
you know how you
what
like,
I mean?
you'll cut quartz and make jewelry out of it? You can't do that
You
with
can't
it.
do
It
that.
just
It's all
falls apart.
jagged.
Yeah.
You know, the molecules are together, but they're not together in a way that
It's like solid.
Yeah,
Right.
any
Now-
way that's
But, so there's where we're at with that. Okay, now I want to leave this subject today. All right, now if you got I'll answer any questions anytime you got about it, but we're going to move in and start getting into the days of creation. Now, so next week when we start the days of creation, then I want you to, in our minds, we're going to talk about it again. One age has been destroyed. Now we're working just a few thousand years ago, and we're going to do a little bit to isolate exactly what was going on the earth during that time, and when these things were occurring, and then what exactly it is that's being occurred, because we don't exactly have it right, because we're always looking at days 1 through 7 as being the very beginning instead of the beginning of this age, which is exactly what that is. Now, when you start talking about
the
7,
beginning of humanity,
you know,
all
thousands
that,
of years,
yeah.
then you're right on,
Yeah.
right? And then when we get into it, when we get to Adam finally, you're gonna find out, you're gonna have a real good solid marker then to be able to say exactly when that was. And you've studied it all your life, you probably don't even realize it. But, it's always right in your face. Yeah, you know, you've said it before, you said if you don't understand what you're reading or what you're looking at, you're making a mistake. There's only a few mistakes you can be making. You either don't understand what you're looking at, or you don't understand what you're reading in the Bible, or both. Because that's been that way. Dude, I kid you not, one time in a combat zone, I tried to talk a dude into becoming a Christian
He
by
feels
telling
bad about
him,
this. He's
all
regrets
right,
this.
by telling him that the dinosaurs were here by Lucifer to confuse his Christian mind. Now, I said that stupid stuff to somebody in a combat zone. You know what he did? Yeah. And walked off. And he should have hit me.
Get the fuck out.
He should have punched me in the mouth and said, when you come back, when you're smarter, stupid.
Oh my god.
I mean, no joke. And people feel bad when you start talking about this, but especially when you can say, well, look what it says, and then they really get mad because it wasn't what Aunt Joe or Uncle Sue taught about it or whatever for 30 years. But, and like I said, I wanted to, this is not new stuff, right? Peter had this down. Way back, Peter, he had it down. He flat nailed it. There was a time before this one that just completely gone. He had no idea about this stuff, but he understood that it was a time that was gone. And the old Jews, they understand this. They understand it really well. And then they talk like they do, because when you talk to one of them, he'll say something like about a soul. He'll go, if he really likes him, he'll say, well, it's very seldom does a soul like that descend from heaven to be with us. And he's actually talking about a person. And it's something that happens to all of us. We all descended from heaven.
Birth.
Yeah, and we were conceived, right? When we were conceived, we all descended from heaven. John chapter 3 said, it goes down past where it's not talking about baptism, but on down past it even says that there's not one person that's went to God that didn't first come down from him. Well, let me show you. What's this? I'm a Bible guy. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Oh, I'm fixing that to get. Hungry.
Why can I not see good there? John
You
chapter
off
3.
tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
I've never been so interested in the Bible.
Good.
Isn't that
Thank
cool?
you.
Yeah,
Because that really makes me feel good.
Totally makes me feel like you're one of
you
us,
guys
for
are making
sure,
me great. Yeah, I love having you guys around because I don't have nobody to talk to about this stuff except my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, because my
And
dad's
it's cool
Jewish.
that, you know, during Passover and stuff, when we come and
Yeah.
hang out, that I'll be able to talk to your dad. You know,
yeah.
That's cool.
Okay, listen to this. What he's talking about coming down. It says, marvel not that I sing you that you must be born again. Oh, wait. Master around send you, no man. Okay, no man. Verse 13 of John chapter 3. John 3:16 is one everybody knows. It's just a little bit before that. No man has ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. And he's saying, even God himself, came, was born through a womb. All right, even
Jesus.
the Son of, it's Christ, right? Is that even I came down from heaven. So there's no man that returns that didn't first come down from there. All right, you got what? So, and that's where you go back to, you go all the way back to Jeremiah.
So you would say that us being in heaven is our celestial
Now
body?
what? Say that one more
Like
time?
us being in heaven first is our celestial
Yeah, it's
body?
your celestial body, right? Yes. You're in, because flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. You can't be, if you see God, you're not in a flesh body because it can't stand.
Okay.
Even Moses
Right.
on the
Yeah,
mountain,
Moses,
you know what I
even
mean?
Moses was transfigured when he went up.
Transfigured. He had to cover his face when he came down because they couldn't stand to look at him, dude.
Yeah, that's right. He don't know.
Well, I
he's
thought, didn't
never
he
heard that.
walk behind him?
Oh, yeah, he did see. Yes,
Yeah.
he saw the hindquarters of God, right, as he left. Right.
I thought Moses didn't see, but God chose to
He showed
walk
him
behind him.
Oh, I don't know.
God
I
chose to
don't
walk
know,
behind
but-
him because if he laid his eyes on him, that he couldn't. Like,
Yeah,
just
but all he
immediately
got to
die.
show, he did show him his hindquarters.
Oh,
I thought.
really?
Maybe we're
Okay,
talking
I'm
about
not
the
sure.
same thing, and maybe we both might be saying a little bit wrong. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Right, but he
Is that
didn't
what
see.
you're talking about?
Right, but no.
No.
When he goes up on Mount Sinai in Exodus, we were just about there.
Yep.
When he goes up, well, 21, I think
read
is
it.
where that
I
is.
had
Yeah. But
Obviously,
I'm
obviously.
sure. Right. But when Moses goes up to get the 10 Commandments, when he comes back down,
yeah.
he
people can't
breaks
stand
them
to
and then he
hardly
goes
look
back
at him,
up and when he
man.
comes back down again. Remember what it says? It said Moses didn't know, but when he come down, the skin of his face was glowing. He was glowing. He'd been transfigured already.
Yeah.
Oh.
And been put back in flesh.
Yeah, then it's
So
'cause
he's
up there for 40
He was
days with God.
expanded and then crammed right back in. You know what I mean?
See, he's up there. Yeah, he's up there with God for 40 days, and flesh can't.
Which was like 4 minutes.
So he has to stand there and talk to him.
Which was like 4 minutes in the celestial body.
Yeah. It's
Or
like
40
that.
seconds, whatever.
Yeah, however, we can break that down, but
Because
But,
one year as a
Okay.
human
it's
is
a
like
1,000 years. Yeah.
it's minute. It's
Right.
1,000 years
Oh,
as a
wait.
human.
Yeah.
It's 1 day or 1 year as a celestial being.
Here,
God's
I got
day.
it. Here, I'll show you. I can
Just show you
Yeah,
that.
I got it. I broke it
So,
all the way down.
One of God's day is 1,000. Or one of God's years is 1,000 years as a human flesh,
Well,
which we're fixing to go through with
So
creation.
like that's like, so like Moses like did just walk up to the mountain and then just get the commandments and then walk back down.
But to him,
us,
it's
it was
perception, right?
40
40
days.
days, right? To him,
Yeah, but to
perception
him it
of
was to
time,
walk
right.
up and walk back down.
Okay, well, we'll break it down this way. Here you go. I got a bunch of stuff on the website. Okay, here you go. This right here. Okay, one day with the 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. Okay. So
Yeah.
we got to break this down then. A 24-hour spiritual day was here to here. Whoops. All right, from there to there. That's in heaven.
1,000 years.
All right.
One
But on
day
earth
is 1,000
is
years for us.
For us, you're on earth, okay? In flesh bodies. Now look, so we can break it down by 50s. 1,000 years, 24 hours. So 500 years on earth is 12 hours in
our
a celestial body.
Bodies.
250 years is, was it 6 hours? I got my glasses. I don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't have to guess. 125 years is 3 hours. 62.5 years is 1.5 hours. Okay.
So 40 days would have been a blink.
Right. Now think about this too. 62.5 days. That's about how old a human
Look at it.
lives, right?
Look at it.
That's about how old a human lives, right? 62 years
62
roughly.
is average, yeah.
Somewhere close to an average. All right. If you were, okay, you came here to work at 8 o'clock, let's say, all right? And 2 hours later, 2.5 hours later, you get your first 10-minute break like most places, all right? That means from the time that you leave your celestial habitation or born of the flesh, 62 years passes by and you return to your perception in your body, you've only been gone an hour and a half. Okay?
Yeah,
See?
Yeah.
So you leave
So
that.
it's gonna,
and-
who knows if we'll even remember it in our
Dude, this
body.
is too science fiction for me, man.
it's
Like,
all Bible.
It's
Man.
all Bible. It's all written down. Dude.
this is like getting to Rick and Morty type things, and like,
It's all written down, though,
Okay,
man.
but you see, okay,
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
Now, see,
Yeah.
so from that perception, from being from there, preparing for the last day, okay, from that perception to go leave and be born of the flesh, that's something. Let's just do this. Let's be done with
Just
it.
be done
I
with
got
it.
an hour and a half. I'll
Let's
be
go
back.
ahead and be done
Yeah.
with
You
this.
get here
Yeah.
and 62 and a half years pass. All right, but
Which
when
is
you
an
return,
eternity for us,
you might
yeah.
even hit first break if you were at
You
work.
haven't even hit first break, man.
All right, so.
You ain't even made it to the time that you can go take a duty.
Yeah, you can't pee yet.
Yeah, dude. So-
your break ain't up.
Nope.
So that's just a little bit about how you see time differently in your spiritual body, right? Because
Yeah.
time unfolds in a completely different way in the spiritual body. You're immortal. You were created to be immortal.
To die. Yeah.
To
and
never die.
We are created here
Here
to die.
yeah.
So it's going to
But
be fast.
in the
compared
beginning, you weren't
to-
supposed
know
to
what I mean?
die. Right.
This is only for us to prove that we're God's, not Lucifer.
All this is just so
Essentially.
we can understand in flesh.
Yeah.
Because time doesn't mean anything in the spiritual body because it was never intended to die.
Well,
Okay,
hold
think,
on.
oh, you want to add some science fiction then with some Bible? All right, let's take that then. Think about this. Traveling through space for flesh people is rough because even if we get close to the speed of light, it still ain't fast enough to go anywhere in the universe.
Not anywhere
in your
any
lifetime.
distance, yeah.
Okay? At 186,000 miles per second, it takes 4 years to get to the next star. Now, 186,000 miles per second.
Per
you have
second.
to travel for 4 light years to get to the next star. One of billions in our Milky Way galaxy. One of millions upon millions of known galaxies. Okay, so it's a big universe. All right. But even if we could travel in the flesh at the speed of light, we have to deal with something called time dilation, which means that as you travel through time, after you leave Earth, you're traveling close to the speed of light, time seems to unfold naturally to you. You turn around, you come all the way back.
Yeah.
You may have been gone 2 weeks, but over 250 years have passed on Earth. All right? In a spiritual body, to do those kinds of things wouldn't mean anything.
It'd be a blink of an
All
eye.
right? 4 light years, that's not even, 4 light years, that's not even out of 1,000 years. How would that be? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, how do you
that would be
calculate
nothing.
that? It would be nothing.
To you to travel to the next star at the speed of light, you wouldn't even be
To the next
affected by
solar
time
system, yeah, dude.
dilation. You could spend 10 million years getting somewhere, and it doesn't mean anything to you.
Anything to you, because time is irrelevant.
It's-
You know what
yeah,
I
it
mean?
doesn't
has
mean
no
anything,
meaning.
right.
Time does not exist at that point.
Okay, well, we're stopping that part right there. Let me stop
I'm
this.
just thinking
That's
about
probably the longest video.
That'll be